Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, the aftermath of Hurricane Nicole and how CBN's Operation Blessing is helping those residents recover. Plus, coffee or tea? Which do you prefer? And which one is better for you?
Both. They're actually both incredibly good for you.
We'll show you which has a slight advantage. Then later, a story of tragedy to triumph. We sit down with Trent Dilfer, a 14-year All-American quarterback and football analyst.
God takes what we view as tragedy and turns it into triumph. And I'm now wise enough to see that happen.
Trent talks about his career and a personal tragedy that occurred in his life. All these stories and more coming up next from the CBN Newsroom.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin this half hour with Tropical Storm Nicole bringing heavy rains to parts of our southeastern states. It comes after battering the Florida coast with 75-mile-an-hour winds. The devastation comes almost a month after Hurricane Ian left its path of destruction. Our Brody Carter reports on the cleanup effort and how CBN's Operation Blessing is helping residents recover after the storm.
It's starting to go down now, but that's my backyard.
And the water is coming right up to the windows, and it was like just like a freight train just going by, and it never stopped.
Nicole is the first hurricane to make landfall along Florida's Atlantic coast since 1935. Heavy winds, rain, and storm surge wreaking havoc, killing at least 5, leaving many without a home. Much of the state still overwhelmed by September's Hurricane Ian.
Just exhausting. It's too close together.
Severe erosion caused by powerful storm surge sent multiple beachfront homes collapsing into the ocean, changing the landscape along Florida's coast.
We've heard people say you shouldn't build on a cliff. There weren't cliffs here. These were not cliffs. These were the walkovers that were, again, you had a ton of space. So this is it's just absolutely devastating.
Nicole came bearing down on Vero Beach Thursday night as a Category 1 hurricane, the first to make landfall in November in decades. The storm dropped half a foot of rain, causing major flooding. At least 50,000 customers are without power. CBN's Operation Blessing was already on the ground, still cleaning up from Hurricane Ian.
We still have active volunteer work taking place, working on homes with either tarping, debris removal, and some of the jobs were also removing, the wet drywall, mucking and gutting.
Teams are now on standby, helping with any needs following this storm.
We just did an emergency meal kit volunteer event on Monday, so we have over 20 pallets of, food that we can hand out as well. These are kits that have non-perishable food. There's enough food in this box for a family of 4 to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 3 days.
Basically, we had swings. I don't know if you can see the swing set there, but we had swings there. You usually have a boat out there, and you can sit out there in the fireplace and have a cocktail or a glass of wine, and now that's obviously all gone.
Florida officials warn the ground and seawall remain unstable, with more collapses to come. The hurricane is now a tropical depression, moving north through Georgia, threatening to bring tornadoes, flash floods, and severe thunderstorms, and bringing heavy rain into the Carolinas. Brody Carter, CBN News.
I want to let you know you can help Operation Blessing in its disaster relief effort. Simply call 1-800-700-7000. Let us know that you want to give to Operation Blessing's Disaster Relief Fund. You can also write us at CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia. The zip code is 23463. Simply note Disaster Relief Fund in the memo line of your check. And you can text us as well. Simply text OBDR to 71777. Or you can go to our website, and that is cbn.com, or Operation Blessing's website, ob.org. As we wait to see how the balance of power will finally stand out in Capitol Hill, focus is already shifting to 2024, and that includes the future plans of former President Donald Trump. While he has strongly hinted at announcing another run for the White House next week, lackluster midterm results may alter those plans. CBN's Matt Gulka has more on the Trump effect.
It appears Donald Trump expected to ride a red wave of momentum toward another White House bid announcement. But since no wave emerged, that timing could be in doubt. At the very least, people in his own party are recommending he hold off until possibly December.
Actually, they were hoping for big losses, but that's not happening. So The numbers have been amazing so far.
Trump expressed confidence election night, but has since called the results disappointing. A predicted red wave for Republicans waned, leaving control of Capitol Hill still up in the air. While he saw some wins, high-profile Senate candidates Trump endorsed floundered. Mehmet Oz in Pennsylvania lost outright. Herschel Walker in Georgia is heading for a runoff, and Blake Masters in Arizona trails in a race still too close to call. Those results possibly amplified by Trump's pre-election promise.
I'm going to be making a very big announcement on Tuesday, November 15th at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida.
Speculation about making another White House run public at this point is now being openly questioned by Trump confidants. Former Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany recommends holding off until the Georgia Senate runoff is decided.
I think he needs to put it on pause, absolutely. Look, he'll make that decision, he'll make his own decision, but
does he go to Georgia?
If I'm advising any contender, DeSantis, Trump, whomever, no one announces 2024 until we get through December 6th.
In an interview with the Philadelphia Inquirer, retiring Republican Senator Pat Toomey cast some blame on the former president, saying, quote, "I think Donald Trump's influence gradually but steadily declines, and I think it accelerates after the debacle that he's responsible for to some degree." A Karl Rove op-ed in the Wall Street Journal called some of Trump's endorsements knuckleheads, without proper vetting from the former president.
Here's my answer to Karl Rove. I mean, it's blah, blah, blah. The Democrats have been after Trump for the longest time. The media has been after Trump. The establishment Republicans have been after Trump. And guess what? There's the trifecta. They're all coming against Trump. So they're spinning this as this was a bad night for Trump.
Virginia Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears saying outright to Fox Business that it was time to move on.
You know, the voters have spoken, and they have said that they want a different leader. And a true leader understands when they have become a liability. A true leader understands that it's time to step off the stage, and the voters have given us that very clear message.
The other elephant in the room is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who didn't need Trump to cruise to a decisive victory.
Thanks to the overwhelming support of the people of Florida, we not only won election, we have rewritten the political map.
That puts him in an even stronger position as a potential frontrunner for the Republican presidential nomination in 2024. Trump already nicknaming DeSantis at a rally before the midterms.
Trump at 71, Ron DeSanctimonious at 10%.
The potential showdown and infighting already delighting Democrats.
Who do you think would be the tougher competitor?
It'll be fun watching them take on each other.
For what it's worth, Trump took to his social platform, Truth Social, to say that he was not angry about the midterm results and that he was, quote, very busy looking into the future. Matt Gelka, CBN News.
Today, Israeli President Isaac Herzog announced he will assign Benjamin Netanyahu and his Likud party to form Israel's new government. While President Biden has congratulated Netanyahu, Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, there are signs the administration is concerned about other leaders in this new right-wing government.
As part of his presidential duties, Isaac Herzog met with all the parties that qualified for the next parliament and asked who they wanted to form the next coalition. A majority chose Likud, which means Benjamin Netanyahu is slated to become Israel's next prime minister. Netanyahu's political comeback represents a choice by many Israelis for a safer country and one with a greater Jewish identity. It also represents a big shift from the former government of Yair Lapid, with its center-led parties, along with an Islamist party.
This time, a right-wing coalition won a very clear majority in the government. Now, with the religious and right-wing parties winning a majority, liberals around the world, and particularly in America, are saying that this government is a threat to democracy, that this government is the end of an open liberal Israel, that this government is going to result in a harming of ties between Israel and America.
Already, the U.S. is pushing back on policies the new government may consider. U.S. Ambassador Tom Knight says the U.S. will oppose any attempts to annex parts of Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank. And the State Department condemned Itamar Ben-Gvir for for participating in an event celebrating the legacy of Meir Kahane and his organization that's designated as a terrorist group. CBN News political analyst John Waggy says the new coalition is likely to find itself on the opposite side of the White House on a number of issues.
First of all, be the two-state solution. I mean, the Biden administration has clearly been moving in a direction where they want to press Israel again to negotiate with the Palestinians and to move toward a two-state solution. That's not something that any Netanyahu government for the last 12, 13 years has been interested in.
Kontorovich says in light of the results, the Biden administration should respect the will of the people.
The people vote for a right-wing government, so when the United States president says, hey, you better watch out, if you make a right-wing government, it can harm our ties, that's essentially telling Netanyahu to ignore the will of the Israeli people, to ignore the democratic electoral expression of that will. That's undemocratic.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And you can see more news from the Middle East with Chris Mitchell and his team on the CBN News Channel tonight at 8:30 Eastern Time, or you can download the CBN News app and watch it as your leisure. The show is called Jerusalem Dateline. Coming up, coffee or tea, which one's better for you? Find out and discover the health benefits of both. Coming up, stay with us. Coffee or tea? Recent studies show they both have health benefits, yet one does have a slight advantage. Medical reporter Lori Johnson shows us which one that is and explains why.
If we're going to reach for a hot cup of something, which is healthier, coffee or tea?
Both. They're actually both incredibly good for you.
That's because they're both loaded with polyphenols, plant compounds that help improve the gut microbiome.
Hippocrates, 2,500 years ago, the father of medicine, said all disease begins in the gut. And quite frankly, I believe that all disease begins and ends in the gut.
Polyphenols have been shown to improve heart health and increase energy. Coffee contains the most polyphenols, particularly light and medium roast.
One very large national brand, because of their dark roasting, virtually has no polyphenols in their coffee. And I won't mention the name.
After coffee, for the most part, the highest polyphenol concentration is found in green tea, followed by black tea. It's generally healthier if you don't add anything to them.
If you put any milk-based product, like half and half, like plain old milk, it completely binds with the polyphenols in both tea and coffee and makes them pretty worthless for you.
If you have to lighten them, Dr. Gundry recommends non-dairy creamers like coconut milk. Sweeteners, both natural and artificial, can cause health problems, with the exception of non-GMO allulose.
Allulose is actually a prebiotic fiber that actually lowers your blood sugars.
In addition to polyphenols, both coffee and tea are chock full of cancer-fighting antioxidants. But coffee has more. Coffee also contains more caffeine, which, believe it or not, is generally considered healthy, especially for the brain.
Coffee drinkers, for instance, have much lower dementia and Parkinson's disease than non-coffee drinkers.
Too much caffeine, however, can interfere with a good night's sleep. So depending on the time of day, sometimes tea is the better choice. Black tea has more caffeine than green.
I have 3 cups of coffee in the morning, and then I switch over to tea, and I have about 5 cups of tea.
2 of the healthiest, pu'er and matcha.
You got to make sure your matcha tea does not come from China. Most matcha tea does come from China, so buyer beware. It is loaded with heavy metals and other chemicals that you don't want.
So in the coffee versus tea smackdown, coffee has the edge. But really, they're both winners. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Coming up, Trent Dilfer has a football resume most quarterbacks dream of, a Pro Bowl appearance, a Super Bowl ring, 14 years in the pros. Hear why he calls the sport he loves just a subplot to his real-life goals. Stay with us. Trent Dilfer has been an All-American QB and an ESPN analyst. Now he's a high school coach. You may think football is his highest priority, but you'd be wrong. As he told CBN's Tom Buring, the sport is just the subplot to the bigger picture in his life.
God takes what we view as tragedy and turns it into triumph. And I'm now wise enough to see that happen.
Trent Dilfer is still the impassioned quarterback, first fueled by a 14-year NFL career, then as a primetime football analyst. Now he roams sidelines and weight rooms as Lipscomb Academy's head coach, shaping young sons from the crucible of his own journey.
And the football's cool, and we don't sacrifice it ever, but it is a subplot to the bigger thing that's going on. And guess what that's going to be? Great husbands, compassionate people, and empathetic people, and people that handle social justice issues the right way. We want to fill that gap out of a small Christian school in Nashville.
Is there a quarterback in all of us?
A lot of people like the flash and sizzle of the quarterback. Very few want the burden that comes with it. Your job's to make everybody around you better. And you can't make them better unless you're bringing them together. And you can't bring them together if it's about you.
Halfway into your 14 NFL seasons, you win the Super Bowl with the Ravens. Ultimately, was that enough to satisfy your NFL ambition?
No, I'm very honest that I'm very, very disappointed in my career. I underachieved. I was a terrible teammate early. Didn't attack the development part like I should have. Our defense obviously is arguably the greatest of all time. We played with great togetherness. It makes the disappointment of my personal performance worthwhile because I was part of something truly great.
2003, you're approaching your 10th season. Your 5-year-old son, Trevin, surprisingly grows sick. It changed your life.
He gets a virus that attacks his heart, 1 in a million. It kills his heart in a matter of days. He gets resuscitated 4 times, miraculously gets put on life support when they said it can never happen. He stays on that life support system for 40 days. He gets a systemic infection. We understand that this is out of our control. To have to turn off life support and to watch end of life of your son, that's the hard part, is thinking, putting myself in his shoes as he went through this.
Rock bottom.
Rock bottom is probably the best way to explain it. Anger is my default for pain. The scar tissue that builds up gets thicker. Self-awareness of what the pain's done to you. Fear sets in at that point because now you're afraid what it's going to do to your kids, your spouse, your loved ones. Numbing sorrow of life not being the same. This is the beauty of this story. We took our kids to a breakfast place on Monday nights. We called it Crazy Dinner. And as we're walking out that night, my 5-year-old son pulls on my jeans and says, "Dad, I want to know Jesus." I said, "That's awesome." He goes, "No, I want to know Jesus right now." This is the Holy Spirit working through a 5-year-old saying, "I'm calling you to me this moment." And we kneeled at a pancake house while people are walking in as the girls walk behind us. And Trevin, at 5 years old, authentically prayed to receive Jesus. So let's fast forward 6 months later when we're turning off life support, we know where he's going. Now we can thank God that he's with him instead of with us.
You played 5 more seasons, you jump in with ESPN for a decade, then coaching up prospects.
The end of my career in ESPN hardened me. Definitely some good things that came out of that, but it hardened me as a man. My kids started seeing it. I lost some gentleness. I lost some compassion. I had gotten complacent. I was chasing the world. I was edgier.
But you started being confronted about significance. What challenged you?
I did not feel like I was having impact. Okay, Lord, I'm listening. Obviously, you're doing something. He just made it really clear that I had said no to serve him, to do hard things, to be uncomfortable, to have impact, to show grace and mercy that's been shown to me. And I hadn't been doing it. I'd been serving myself.
In 2019, a high school coaching search brought Lipscomb Academy to Trent for recommendations. Instead of taking his advice, they offered him the job. He surprisingly took it. A rebuild for the program and a renewal for Trent.
I'm going to coach a high school football team that has 38 kids on it that won 3 games in 2 years, and that's where he took me.
Turning Agony around, are you seeing this transformation playing out before your eyes?
I am, and I think that comes from all this pain that's now being repurposed in this passion to see every individual in my care chase their best and to understand that their best is the same power that rose Christ from the dead, lives in us and gives life to our mortal bodies. The power of raising Christ from the dead lives in us, and that's the passion, and I'm fired up.
Do you see Trevin in the eyes of those high school kids?
And I tear up every once in a while, and I probably tear up.
It's okay, Trent. You're giving them the mechanics of a coach, but the heart of a dad.
I'm simply pouring my life into your kid. Let him be the fullness of who he is, his God-given potential and all that goes with that.
Where do you find your Savior in the face of suffering?
There's a lot of pain, and that's where I'm seeing Jesus surface the most, because that's where he meets people the most intimately. You are broken, you are confused, you are angry, you are hurting. Guess where Jesus is? He's right there. He's like, I got you. The redemptive quality of Christ has taken really bad stuff and turned it into good stuff. That's where I'm seeing Jesus show up the most as a coach.
Up next, actress Patricia Heaton offers some words of hope for those disappointed with the midterm election results. Stay with us. Actress Patricia Heaton took to social media earlier this week, sending encouraging words to Christians disappointed following the results of Tuesday's election. She said, for those of you who are Christians and who feel disappointed or despairing of the election results, it is a blessing to be reminded our security does not rest in men or governments, which are finite and will eventually crumble, but in a God alone who is ever sustaining. And you can read more on this story by visiting our website at cbnnews.com. Time now for your Friday Faithful, and today I want to leave you with this thought. Everyone has a calling. That includes you. And that calling is tied to a purpose so much greater than you. So tap in. Your calling is greater than you are. Embrace that truth and make today a fabulous Friday. Be sure to also have yourself a wonderfully restful weekend. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN Newswatch. Thank you so much for watching. I want to remind you, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel at any time. You can also find them online, by the way, at cbnnews.com, as well as on YouTube. We would love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll see you back here on Monday. Bye-bye.